All right, now I'm screen sharing. Cool. All right, now I guess I'll just, yeah. Okay, we want to maximize, make that nice and pretty. Okay. All right, this is MS4 audition preparation for Dr. Need. Okay. Cool. All right, what type of biopsy is this, Hadassah?
Oh gosh. Okay.
It's a shave, right? Shave
Yes.
biopsy. All right, and then do you think this is like a neoplastic or inflammatory process?
Inflammatory.
It's saying okay, and it does from this power. It does look inflammatory. What about now when we go higher power? Does it still look inflammatory?
Um, I think so.
Okay, there is some inflammatory. So I grant there is some perivascular inflammation here. So this is like some. So it's is it only inflammatory?
I think I guess not from the way you're phrasing your
Yeah.
question.
So why am I guessing? Because like here's normal, right? Let's take a look at normal skin. Here's the normal skin, right? Here's your normal thickness of the normal skin. When the skin, so this is epidermis. When the epidermis becomes really thicker, what do we call that? There's a name for it.
Acanthosis.
Acanthosis. Great. And typically acanthosis is a type of neoplasia or a type of neoplastic. It's not necessarily neoplasia, but it's like could be hyperplasia. But when we say neoplastic, like it's kind of lumped in. Acanthosis is sort of kind of lumped. A lot of conditions that are acanthotic are sort of lumped into neoplasia, even though it's typically not all of them. Like psoriasis is acanthosis, but it's not lumped into that. But look at this. I wish can like move this annoying thing that's, oh, I can. Cool. All right. So like, look at this. Like there's a very discrete cut off thing right here, right? You see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So there's like, okay, so there's a lesion here,
Yeah.
whatever it is. Okay. And totally reasonable to think inflammatory, but what kind of like pattern? So if I were to draw like outline the shape here, right?
It looks undulating.
Yeah, undulating. Is there a word for that? We have a word for that.
Like
invaginated.
invaginated.
Yeah, invaginated or papillated is what is the same. They're all one and the same, but like the word. So so undulating, papillomatosis, like it goes up and down invaginated. So papillomatosis, like or papillated, really. Papillomatosis is usually associated with more warty type of things, but like papillated. If you look at your fist, if you like kind of made a fist, you see your knuckles.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like your knuckles, right?
Yeah.
Here. And one thing, I will give you a little life hack for this. Okay. You play chess, right?
I know the rules.
Okay. What piece does this remind you of?
The castle.
Yeah, the rook sign, right? This entity has rook signs. Like it's not just papillate, it doesn't just look like a knuckle, but like when you see something like that looks like the chess piece of a rook, the way it's papillated, there's an entity that this is basically, right? It's missing a lot of other features, so it might be throwing you off, right? So it doesn't have, this or this or this. What are these, by the way?
Are those keratin pearls?
So they're not keratin pearls. Keratin pearls are, now that you said keratin pearls, what are these?
Those are keratin pearls.
Those are keratin pearls, right? And this, which means that this is do you know what keratin pearls are associated with?
Squamous cell.
Squamous cell carcinoma, right? Okay, so this is actually fine. So we can this is a papillated pattern. It's very inflamed. It has both in this case, right? It has one of these, and it also has keratin pearls. So what are these? They kind of look like cysts, but they're not cysts. Like pseudocysts. or pseudohorn cysts.
Right. This right. The in seborrheic keratosis.
Yeah, seborrheic keratosis, seborrheic keratosis typically has pseudohorn cysts.
Right.
Squamous cell carcinoma is typically what has the keratin pearls. So it's very important to not confuse those two together.
Right.
Yeah, they clump up together. They start keratinizing. Those are keratin pearls. And by the way, where's the squamous cell carcinoma here? Is it, is it in this area? Is it in this area? You did head and neck, right?
I did head and neck.
You saw squamous cell carcinomas when you did head and neck?
Did not see that many.
Oh, okay.
Thyroid.
So you can start seeing where this becomes a problem, right? So this is a seborrheic keratosis, right? You see the pseudohorn cyst. So let's go over seborrheic keratosis real quick, and we'll get back to it. So seborrheic keratosis, the epidermis is acanthotic. Okay, that's one. First thing to notice, there's thickening of the skin, of the epidermis. The second thing to notice is that it has a papillated pattern. Okay. Papillated, but not extensively it's gently papillated, typically. It's kind of like the knuckles, not like your fingers, more like your knuckles. You're lucky if you have pseudohorn cysts. You're also lucky if you have the Rook sign or the castle sign. This is a Dr. Phelpsism, right? This looks like a castle in the game of chess. Those are all features of seborrheic keratosis. Okay. You'll notice that in this case, there are certain populations of the seborrheic keratosis, like the cells look sort of monomorphic, and then there's this population and this population. There's some, by the way, there's some spongiosis, exactly, good. So there's spongiosis in the seborrheic keratosis. All sorts of things happen to the seb, by the way. It's probably someone went to town on it, someone rubbed it, someone scratched it. They did all the things that you're not supposed to do to the seborrheic keratosis, right? Okay, cool. So here it's easier, right? Because what do you have in this example?
Here you have the the horn pseudocyst.
The horn pseudocyst or pseudohorn, however you say it, doesn't matter. But yeah. So, but notice what else you have. Like all the other features you typically have. You have so what do you have? You have thickened or thin of the epidermis. Yeah, it's acanthosis. Exactly. Good. So you have acanthosis, you have pseudohorn cysts, and in this case, you may not have the castle sign. In fact, you don't. In the other example, it's really the castle sign that can really give it away to you that this is, if you're stuck, that castle sign really does help you. Say like, oh no, like sebs have castle signs. Okay. What are these, by the way? See those whirling? Almost like keratin pearls, but they're not keratin pearls. So this is a feature of the keratinocytes in seborrheic keratoses. They're called squamous eddies.
Squamous eddies?
Yeah, squamous eddies. It's actually a benign feature. So when seborrheic keratoses get irritated, sometimes that clonal pattern, or sometimes the parts of the seborrheic keratosis that like act as one, they whirl together. They don't fully keratinize into like something that looks like this. Well, in this case it is, but typically it's really this you're looking at. So you can see, so like, for example, here you have both. Here you have a keratin pearl. Here you have a squamous eddy. The keratin pearls can be seen in squamous cell carcinomas. They can also be seen in seborrheic keratoses. Squamous eddies are seen in seborrheic keratoses. They are not seen in squamous cell carcinomas, not typically. Okay. It's a good sign. This right here is a good sign. It's a benign feature of the signs of benignity. Just have to do this once every reload because it won't let me scroll anymore. Okay, come on, let me scroll. There we go. Okay, so that's important. So those are important features of seborrheic keratoses. And look, it's just this acanthotic epidermis. It either has one of the following things: squamous eddies. Pseudohorn cysts is like a very easy giveaway. You should be thinking like, okay, why is this not a seborrheic keratosis if you see pseudohorn cysts? It has a papillated pattern, but papillated like your knuckles, not papillated like your fingers.
Mhm.
Okay. Sometimes you can get clonal components of the seborrheic keratosis that act differently than other parts. That's also fine. Another type, well, actually, let me just tell you, let me just see what we have here. So, like, what are these? Common theme today.
Those are the pseudocysts.
Yeah, pseudohorn cysts. And, you know, what is the overall pattern if I were to show you this?
The overall pattern.
Like,
Yeah, it's the
papillated, right?
the knuckly pattern.
Sorry about that. Papillated. Let me just close the door again. So papillated pattern, right? Okay. So papillated pattern. Now, what's different about this seborrheic keratosis?
It looks very red.
Okay, it does look red. It's more eosinophilic. The eosin is staining in this one a bit more than the hematoxylin. That's just incidental. Different labs have different ratios of eosin to hematoxylin staining. But what about the architecture?
Right, the dermis. I don't know, like with a
dermis. No, you're right. It's in the dermis.
Weird.
But what's going on in the dermis from the epidermis?
The reedy ridges are just extended.
Yes, good. Yeah, there's cords, right? There's cords of epi that are going down and they're interlacing with each other, right?
Yeah.
Okay. There are a number of conditions that can do that. A seb actually is one of those conditions that can do that. It's a type of seborrheic keratosis. It's called a reticulated seborrheic keratosis. Okay, and it's very self-explanatory. That is just what the seb is doing. It's reticulating.
It's just a type of pattern. Does it change the clinical?
No. Okay. No, it's just a different histologic type of seborrheic keratosis.
Okay.
Cool. So I'm just showing you a whole bunch of, now in this case, I'm showing you a whole bunch of seborrheic keratosis. So when you go tomorrow, you're going to be like, oh, I know that type of seb. I know. Another thing with sebs is they have a very conspicuous type of stratum corneum. You see how loose it is?
Yeah.
It's a very loose, perforaceous type of stratum corneum. It almost resembles the type of keratin you see in an epidermal inclusion cyst, which we'll go over. Okay, well, and notice, let me see if I could find another example of, this might not be the best example, but like what chess piece? No, why is it not letting me draw? I hate, okay, does this one let me? No. What chess piece is this?
Is that the castle again?
The castle, it's the rook, okay?
Look, the rook.
It's the rook. Do I have to reload the page? Hold on. Whoa. Okay, we'll cut that part out. All right. There we go. Now we're back in business. Okay. Yeah. So that, and here it is again. Yeah. So we could always look for the best example of Dr. Phelps's rook sign, right? Mm-hmm. You know, when it becomes, when you see the perfect rook sign, right? That's, oh, here we go. Actually, look at that. See that? How squared off it is perfectly like that.
That's a good one.
That's okay. So according to Dr. Phelps, when you see something perfectly rook sign like that, there's only one entity that it is, and it's a seborrheic keratosis.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that is like, there's two things that can really give things like the acanthosis and pseudohorn cysts without much else going on, or like or the castle sign, like, oh, and here it is again. Like, but now in this case, there's a problem, right? So like, even looking at low power, like, what's the big problem here?
Yeah, that thing in the center.
Right. Something's fucked. Like, something's going on here, right? Okay. So I mean, look, here's normal skin. Here's seb. What the hell happened here? So let's take a look. So now we see what? We see some, what are these?
The keratin pearls.
We see some okay, good. We see some keratin pearls. We see some cords of keratinocytes. Remember, we know they're keratinocytes because we see the desmosomes connecting to each other, and we see it came from this. Mm-hmm. So we can use a little bit of induction there, or deductive faculties. So, okay, fine. But then this is Also we have, what is this? Let me draw it. Put this away to the side. Draw. What's that? Let me zoom in for you. See that?
Yeah. Is that just like mitosis or
Yeah, it's a mitotic. Yeah, exactly. It's a mitotic figure. Is that a good or bad sign when we start seeing that in tumors?
That's not great.
No, not great. Not at all. So this is giving us an indication that this is a malignant process, and a malignant process of keratinocytes that are not the basilar keratinocytes is commonly
Sorry, say again.
a malignant process of keratinocytes that are not the basilar keratinocytes, like a basal cell carcinoma is commonly what type of carcinoma?
Squamous.
A squamous cell carcinoma, exactly. Yeah. So this is a squamous cell carcinoma arising in a seborrheic keratosis. Good. So this is a 2 for 1. So you got a seb, you got a squam.
But they're not. Is one like is a seborrheic keratosis? Does it have? Do you have to be worried that it's going to transform?
No, no.
These are unrelated.
The reason this is being shown, in fact, is because it's very rare. So it could be one or two things. It could be like so one possibility is that this is just a collision tumor, which is just to say that there's a squamous cell carcinoma that bumped into a cell, right? The problem is it's dead center, and it doesn't look like it's like any, and you can actually see where it starts in the seb becoming a squamous cell carcinoma. So this is probably a squamous cell carcinoma that actually arose from this seb, if I had to bet my money on it. Now, we don't excise sebs because we're worried about that. It's the reason this is being shown is, in fact, because it's so rare that we don't have to worry about it, because it's novel. That's why someone decided to upload this to Path Presenter.
Okay.
So to answer your question, no, we're not. Seborrheic keratoses are benign. They don't need to come out. And when this happens, it's like, wow. Yeah. Okay. But if we were to excise seborrheic keratosis because of that, we'd be just excising everything. We might as well flay the patient's skin off at that point. If you don't have skin, you can't get skin cancer. Right. Now, notice what pattern is this? Similar to the last time.
Very papillary.
Papillated, but is it knuckle papillated or finger papillated?
Like finger.
Finger, right? You're not going to get a rook sign here. You're going to get these church spire type of pattern. Right. Okay. And, I don't know if you saw these when you did head and neck, but you see how these, they're vacuolated here? Keratinocytes? I'm sorry. Say it louder.
I didn't see the keratinocytes much on, no.
You see these cells?
Yeah.
See how they're connected to each other with you can see the little teeny teensy beansy desmosomes connecting to each other. Yeah, that's how you know they're keratinocytes. If you need to check when you're in the epidermis, there's keratinocytes there. So these cells are keratinocytes.
Those are keratin. Those look like melanocytes to me.
Yes, they do. Well, sort of. They sort of do. The problem with melanocytes, and why these are not melanocytes? Couple things. So melanocytes don't have desmosomes connecting to each other. Now, in these cases, when you're dealing with vacuolations, because keratinocytes still have their desmosomes, they get naked nuclei. When they get vacuolated, the desmosomes hang onto the cytoplasm and they don't hang onto the nucleus. So if you see vacuolations and naked nuclei, you're dealing with a keratinocyte and not a melanocyte.
Okay. When
you have a melanocyte, the melanocyte does not have desmosomes, and so the nucleus should be covered at least by some sort of the cytoplasm should not get stuck to the edge. It should have some covering of the nucleus typically, and we'll get into that. We'll show you melanocytes. Okay. So these are vacuolated keratinocytes. Do you know what kind of conditions can cause vacuolated keratinocytes that look like this? And the nuclei, are they just normal nuclei? They're kind of see how they're dark and oddly shaped and larger? If we compare it to these. Or normal skin. Let's see normal skin. Here, look at this. Look at the normal skin. These are the nuclei.
Yeah.
right? Now let's go back. Look at this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's no mitotic figures. There's not like there's no, they're not like under, I'm not worried about cancer here, but this is what we call coilocytic change.
Oh, like HPV.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, that's exactly what this is. This is an HPV induced lesion.
Wow.
These are, you see how you see the, look at these, you see how these, you have these stippling over here, these granules.
Yeah. That's the
Yeah, these are really coarse granules. They're large, jagged, sharp, everything. Look at normal skin. Let's compare. Look at the where are the granules, by the way? What layer?
the
granular layer, exactly. Yeah. See, here's the tiny eensy beensy granules in the granular layer over here. It's a tiny layer. See
yeah.
that? But now look at the granular layer over here. What do you see?
Yeah, much more.
Yeah, thicker, jagged, right? Okay, so do you know any entity that has like, is papillated in pattern, but finger papillated, not knuckle papillated, has coilocytic change like HPV, has really coarse granules, keratinohyaline granules is what they're called, by the way.
That's the Verruca vulgaris.
Yes, great. That's exactly what this is. This is a common wart, Verruca vulgaris. Perfect. Similarly, this is a
Verruca vulgaris.
Verruca vulgaris, and you have all the same findings. Coilocytic change, you have, okay. But this is something that we just so you know, something that typically gets recognized just of low power. Diagnosis is made and you move on. Yeah. Okay. What do you see here?
Do you always see the coilocytic change with Verruca?
You do not always see the good, excellent question. The answer is no. You do not always. You're not always lucky enough to see the coilocytic change, but that's okay. When you're not lucky enough to see the coilocytic change, you can still look at the architecture. So you still have the papillated pattern, finger papillated, not knuckle papillated, and you can still look for coarse granules, which we find over here. See?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so pretty.
They are pretty, just like warts themselves. What about here?
So this looks like a nevus.
Nevus are made of what type of cells?
Well, you see the
The melanocytes, right? So no, it's fine because I didn't.
Oh no, I know this.
Okay.
These are the puppy dog paws. The dirty puppy dog paws.
Dirty paws, dirty socks, chocolate dips, whatever. So it's
solar lentigo.
Solar lentigo. Excellent. That's what it is. Yeah. Okay. So let's go over but you thought nevus. So let's go over why it's not. So did you think nevus because you saw the pigmentation?
Yeah, but
okay. So melanocytes typically, sometimes in some conditions, but they typically don't carry their pigment with them. Like they carry it, but they give away their pigment. They're typically not like pigmented like this. That's one. They're actually sort of pale. They're surprisingly, a lot of times when you see melanocytes, you'll see how surprisingly, like for example, like this is a melanocyte, by the way. How do I know? See this cytoplasm? See how it's touching the nucleus?
Yeah.
Shouldn't really do that if it's vacuolated keratinocyte, but there are melanocytes here. Like here's another melanocyte, by the way. Here, there are plenty of them. Here's a melanocyte. So it's not that solar lentigos don't have melanocytes. They do. It's just that the amount of melanocytes in solar lentigos is just normal skin melanocytes.
Mm-hmm.
There's just no increase or decrease of the melanocytes in the reticulation of the solar lentigo. See how that is? But all these other cells are what?
The keratinocytes.
They're keratinocytes. And notice which cell has the pigment?
The keratinocytes.
The keratinocytes, not the melanocytes. Exactly. Okay. So it's a reticulated pattern. Mm-hmm. The pigment is in these reticulated areas. That's what a solar lentigo looks like. There's some debate about whether solar lentigos just evolve into seborrheic keratoses. Like you can almost imagine how if this were to like evolve, like if you were to level up or do its Pokemon thing and evolve, that it can become What did we see earlier?
The reticular.
Reticulated. See that? Yeah, reticulated seborrheic keratosis when this becomes its final form, right?
So fun.
Exactly. Yeah, so there's some idea that like seborrheic keratosis, at least some seborrheic keratoses start off as solar lentigos and then evolve into seborrheic keratoses, but that's a whole different discussion. But yes, recognize solar lentigo. Good. You got it. Okay. And now, first off, just looking at low powered, we see this band, right?
Yeah.
Band of cells. We're not sure what it is. We're technically not going to say lichenoid because it's not obscuring the dermal epidermal junction, but it's some band of cells. So we're going to classify them. So what kind of cells do you think they are?
They look basaloid.
Okay, so when we say basaloid, so basaloid like these type of cells that are palisading, is what you're saying these type of cells are?
No, like a little lower down. They're very dark.
A little lower down they are, and we'll get to that, why that is. But like, let me just ask you this. Let's start here. So even lower, by the way, even lower down, I want you to differentiate this cell that's in the basal layer from these cells, right? Why am I asking you to do that?
I think that is a melanocyte.
That is a melanocyte, correct. And these are
keratinocytes.
Keratinocytes. Okay, cool. They're similar. Now, if you were to pick even the basal layer, like what does it more closely resemble?
The keratinocytes.
The keratinocytes, as opposed to the melanocyte. Like, so you're saying, hold on. So do you see how, let's give you, okay, so maybe I included some unnecessary keratinocytes. So here are the basilar keratinocytes. One thing I want you to let me just ask you this. Do you think there's like pale cytoplasm in these basilar keratinocytes?
No.
No. Are there pale cytoplasm in these cells?
Yeah. Yes.
There are. Are there pale cytoplasm in these melanocytes?
Yeah.
Yes.
So those melanocytes, those are melanocytes.
Yes, these are all melanocytes.
Mm.
So, but it's easier. So let's not make it harder on yourself. So it's easier to start from the top, and I'll get to why that is. So if I were to just ask you the same question, being like, "Hey, what's this? What cells do you think these are?" Would you have said keratinocytes?
No.
No, definitely not. And even these cells, would you have said keratinocytes?
No.
No. It's only when you got to the bottom that you started thinking keratinocytes, right? Yeah. So there's a reason for that. So as melanocytes in nevi mature, they lose their cytoplasm. They get smaller. They have a tendency to get smaller. That's called and that's a good thing. That's a maturation sign.
Right.
It's a sign that it's actually a nevus and not a melanoma. It's maturing well. There's still, now, if you look closely, I can force zoom this. If you look closely, you'll still see there is some pale cytoplasm here.
Yeah.
Right. So you can still figure it out. It's just harder to do that. As you progress, you're going to be, even if you didn't have this, you will eventually be able to look at this and be like, oh, these are just melanocytes. Obviously, these are not keratinocytes. But as a beginner, make it easy on yourself. Just be like, hey, wait a minute. This kind of looks like part of the same thing going on here. It's just like a fade and a haircut.
Yeah.
Right? They're fading out the cytoplasm. These are clearly melanocytes. These are clearly melanocytes. Here it's still melanocytes. Maybe here it's unclear. You're like unsure of yourself.
Right.
But now you know that there's that phenomena where there's melanocyte maturation.
I see.
Okay. Exactly. So, and notice, by the way, you might think these are, for the same reason, you might look at this and be like, hey, what inflammatory cell might you think these are?
Lymphocytes.
Lymphocytes, exactly. Yes. You might have thought that these were lymphocytes, except look how contiguous they are with the melanocytes. And if you zoom in closely, what kind of cytoplasm do they have?
It's pale. It's just more
pale cytoplasm, and they're not even off clock like a plasma cell. So do lymphocytes have pale cytoplasm?
Yes. No, they do not.
Not exactly good.
Melanocytes do.
Melanocytes. Okay. So lymphocytes do not have tail cells. So, and then what are they going down, by the way? What are they tracking down?
What? That is a sebaceous gland.
This is so yes, good. This is a sebaceous gland, and this structure.
That's is that a hair follicle?
So let's see if we have any hair follicles here. We do not. That's a shame. But look, but okay, like, do you see how there's this inner space here?
Yeah.
Yeah. There, and lined by the inner space is this really eosinophilic lining.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you see how many layers do you have in terms of cells lining that space?
It looks like one.
One. Yeah, exactly. So do you know of any like structure that has like a lumen, a lumen, but a very eosinophilic?
Oh, it's a lymph channel or something.
So lymph channels can do that, but would they be this small or would they be more dilated?
I guess they would be more dilated.
Lymphatics are typically really dilated, right? But look at, so let me ask you this then. What's the, if you can actually see it here, like, is this cuboidal? Is it like an endothelial type cell, or is it like more of a cuboidal type of lining? If we were to try to imagine this, like, here's the lumen, here's the type of cell.
It's cuboidal.
The cuboidal. Okay, so do you know of a structure? So do you know of a structure that has cuboidal lining with the eosinophilic? It's a type of, so basically it's a duct. So like sweat gland.
Don't tell me. Yes, the eccrine duct.
Yes, good. Okay. Sorry. I'll try not to give away answers that quickly next time. Okay. Apologies.
Okay, but I thought it was 2 layers of cuboidal.
So that's a good, yeah. So let's show you. Because there's a difference between the eccrine gland and the eccrine duct. Were you looking at the? We'll find some. Let's see if I can find some for you. When we go over normal skin, we'll do so. But just to easily recognize it, sorry, you might actually be right there. Double layer for the, you might be right about the, I'll actually, I'm drawing a blank on this myself.
Maybe this is 2 over here.
Is it 2 in the duct or the gland? Remind me.
I don't know. I forgot.
Duct layer.
It's the gland.
It's the gland. That's 2 or 1.
Double layers.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah. So the gland. You're thinking of the gland, right? But this isn't the gland. You see how it's a duct, right? That's the key. So okay. So if you're thinking of the gland, then yes, you're right. But the eccrine duct, you can see 1 layer.
Okay.
But the really conspicuous thing, and I want you to pay attention to this because sometimes you'll see this in cross section.
Yeah.
Right. The way to see it is like a very little lumen, and you'll see it's lined by this really, really eosinophilic, right at the edge of the lumen, this really eosinophilic lining. Like that's called a cuticle.
Okay.
An eosinophilic cuticle. When you get more advanced, there's going to be certain entities that you'll really have to recognize it for that. So anyway, let's figure this out. Right now, you do see some pigment here, but notice how much this is matching. And yes, look, it's maturing, it's going down to adnexal structures. So what kind of entity do you think this is?
This is a nevus.
It is a nevus. Now, are there different? What do you know of? Did you read up on by any chance any different types of nevi?
Junctional.
Okay, junctional nevus. Which is this a junctional nevus?
Yes. Well,
what is a junctional nevus?
It's when the you see the pigment in the epidermis.
So a junctional nevus is when the melanocytes are just at the dermal epidermal junction. It's not based on where the pigment is.
Oh, okay, fine. So then the melanocytes are clearly in the dermis. It's
so let's go. So if they're just at the dermal epidermal junction, then it's a junctional nevus. If they're just in the dermis, then it's a what?
Intradermal.
Yeah, intradermal nevus, exactly. If
it's compound.
Yes, then there's compound, exactly. So in this case, we clearly have a dermal component. So we know it's not a junctional nevus, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then what are these nests over here? Well, they're starting to form a nest.
Okay. So that was when I was getting confused because I know you find the melanocytes in the basal layer
Yes,
normally.
correct.
So
Hmm?
we're looking for actual nests of cells, which I guess I was having a hard time
Take
finding.
a look at that. What's that?
Yeah, that's a nest.
That's a nest. Where is it?
That still looks to me like it's in the dermis.
So that's okay. So I'll introduce you to a little point. Okay, so a couple things. So let's just make the point more clear. So what's this? Connected.
Yeah, that's the reedy ridge.
Okay.
That's in the
Yeah. Now sometimes you'll see something like this, right? And because of tangential sectioning, you won't actually see it connected.
Oh, so this really is part of the reedy ridges.
This really is, yes. In fact, you
like
can see it like coming down. Yeah, it's you have to think about it in 3-dimension, right? So try to think about the layer, like how far are the reedy going down, right?
Okay.
They're going down where this is.
It's on the level of reedy.
It's at the level, right? It's right where it's supposed to be.
Right.
If we're connected. So this would be a what?
This is a compound.
Yeah. In fact, now it's more obvious. Is this a normal amount of melanocytes?
No.
No. So there's lentiginous junctional melanocytic hyperplasia here either way. So it's a compound nevus. All right. Low power, tell me what you see.
Okay. Low power, I see in the it's hard to point exactly where I'm talking about, but
Okay, just say it.
by the hair shafts, I see like I thought initially that was like a little acanthosis beneath the hair shafts, but
over here?
that's just like normal finding.
Yeah, that's totally fine. Do you see any like is there anything striking you? Is there anything standing out to you? Are there any types of cells you see? Are there any types of
I see sebaceous glands.
Okay.
I see dermis.
dermis? So what's in the dermis?
It's kind of purpley.
Yeah, well, why is it purpley? Like, is this normal dermis?
I don't think so.
No, what's it filled with?
I guess, are those melanocytes?
They are melanocytes, but let's not guess, right? So from low power, if these were lymphocytes, it would look jet black. These don't look jet black.
Okay.
So it's either some sort of other cell, maybe it's a histiocyte, maybe it's a plasma cell, who knows? But the key is to recognize like, okay, I definitely see like there's some sort of papule type, like it's a dome shaped, right? You see there's a papule.
Yeah.
And you definitely do see sebaceous gland. You can see, well, maybe this is sebaceous hyperplasia or something. But there's a lot of, this is a very packed cellular density over here. There's something here that we need to look at.
Yeah.
So let's look at it. What are they?
So those are nests of melanocytes.
Now it's clear. Yes, these are clearly nests of melanocytes. Very paracytoplasm, and they're nesting. Right? Remember, start at the top if you're thinking melanocyte. It makes it easier for you because in the event that they're maturing, look what's happening to them. They're getting really small.
Right. So let's look at the reedy ridges.
Okay, good. So now we have to classify it, right? So we're convinced it's benign. It's like it's a papule. It's well circumscribed. Okay, cool. So not a whole, yeah. So this is the level of the reedy. Do we see any lentiginous melanocytic hyperplasia that's out of the normal?
No.
No, we don't. Okay. Do we see clusters of nests connected?
To the reedy ridges? No.
Yeah. Or to any part of the epidermis, really, except for the adnexal structures.
No.
No. So this is a?
The intradermal.
Intradermal nevus. Good job. Again, really populated, fairly large. But again, Like, what are we dealing with?
Lots of melanocytes.
Lots of melanocytes, very clearly. Okay. Now, are we going to split in real life? Are we going to split hair and say, oh, look, this touched the epidermis? Did they really care? No, this is a compound problem. Like, oh, they called it intradermal. So they didn't split hairs either.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, this is another intradermal nevus. But they can be the point is that these can be pretty large. Like you can have these pedunculated, and look, you'll think it's like an acrocordon. You'll think it's like a skin tag or something. But then when you look at path, like even though it has the architecture of a skin tag, the fact that there are melanocytes there trumps the architecture of the skin tag, and you'll call it an intradermal nevus.
Yeah. Okay, so this is still intradermal. Well, how much the melanocytes do you need to see in the epidermis to classify it? Yeah, let's see.
That is a good question, and in terms of when you're converting it in terms of, so that's a subjective answer. It's like a spectrum, right?
Yeah.
So there actually is no consensus on that, and no one really cares because it's benign and regardless of what you pick.
Right.
But what I can tell you is that when you do see so the rough broad criteria is if you're seeing an intradermal nevus that also has a junctional melanocytic hyperplasia components, like if you're seeing like beyond normal, like here is beyond normal. We agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is far too many melanocytes for normal, right? And similar story here. These are nests. We don't know here. Here we know, right? If you start seeing a bunch of nests, okay, compound. Now, is Dr. Nitamaro going to be like, aha, you missed this melanocyte? Is one extra melanocyte in the epidermis? Is he going to grill you on that? No, he's not. He doesn't care, right? But you should know that this is a nevus, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
What are those? Sorry, go back for a second.
Yeah.
So you see those other pearls?
You mean pseudohorn cysts?
Yeah, so those are still pseudohorn cysts.
Yes. In fact, you can have seborrheic. This is an important point. I'm glad you brought it up. You can have a seborrheic keratosis architecture, but because it has melanocytes in it that define a nevus, that trumps the seb. We don't call it seb anymore at that point.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. What do we see over here? So look, again, normal skin.
Yeah, the dermis looks a lot better here.
And all of a sudden and here really there's one thing that just stand out for you at low power.
It's the epidermis, the reedy.
Yeah, the pigment and exactly the reedy, the pigment in the reedy. They're really pigmented. Now they don't really have like the dirty socks, and we do see some pigment drop it in some in melanophages over here. So but we do see there may be some acanthos here, but we do see some. What's this?
Those are melanocytes.
Those look like the melanocytes, exactly. And so there are, and these are a case where the pigment is really in them, and you can see that there's areas of pale if you compare it to the normal keratinocyte. This is too much, right? Yep. So this is either going to be a lentigo or a junctional melanocytic nevus. Given this, might favor that. And so this is a lentiginous. So in this case, they did split hairs because they called it compound because there was this, right? And this is beyond the level, right? So at least recognize that there is a junctional melanocytic hyperplasia component here. So this is either going to be a junctional melanocytic nevus. If you want to split hairs, you can see that, okay, well, here we have pale cytoplasm. So, and this is a little bit beyond the level of the reedy, right? So then you call it a compound nevus. Again, you're not going to get hammered over that level of splitting, but just be able to recognize that, hey, this is a nevus with a junctional component. This is a nevus with I see a dermal component. If you're able to recognize and identify those things, you're doing well.
Okay.
Just like, oh, this is not a melanoma. It's not going to kill the patient, right?
Right.
Okay. Now here, again, remember what we talked about. So what cell is jet black at low power?
Jet black is the basaloid.
Jet black is it's an inflammatory cell.
The lymphocytes.
It's dark blue or purple.
The lymphocytes?
Lymphocytes, yes. So remember this. This is going to help you, in, even if you don't do Dermpath, if you go into like head and neck, or if you're like, even if you're a breast pathologist, like lymphocytes are jet black. A collection of just lymphocytes without any other inflammatory cell, jet black at low power. Like you can look at this at low power and you'd be like, I know these are lymphocytes. I don't have to zoom in. Like, I mean, I'm going to zoom in and confirm it. I can show you, right? These are lymphocytes.
Yeah.
Right. They're not like nests of melanocytes that are large up top, maturing on bottom. They're lymphs. Right.
Yeah.
Jet black. Now, the obvious question is, why are the lymphs there?
Right.
Right. There's something they may not like. So let's look at normal skin. Right. Here's the normal. Is this normal?
Yeah.
This?
That's not normal.
That's not normal. Like, normal, something happened here. Okay. Now, sometimes, and this is an important key feature to recognize, like it's not always this way, but sometimes the melanocytes do a better job at diagnosing things than the pathologist does, right? In this case, the melanocytes have made a diagnosis, right? That's why they're there. They're like, this should not be here. Okay.
The melanocytes?
Oh, sorry, I got my tongue twisted. Those lymphocytes. The lymphocytes do a better job than the pathologist at diagnosing sometimes. In this case, they're recognizing something that shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's try to figure out what it is. So let's just describe what's different. So let's tell me about the nuclei at the basal layer.
So they're the nuclei. They're kind of like,
Compare it to normal.
it looks like basal cells. They're like palisading and elongated.
So I want to show you one thing. So a lot of people, and so a couple things. So I don't want you to recognize this as palisading because it's not.
So
I understand why you think it is.
Like
what?
On the right side, right? Just
right here. Maybe you can argue there's a little palisading here. The overall picture here, this is not palisading. This is not palisading. This is not palisading. This is not palisading.
Yeah, okay. That's fair.
Like the overall picture here is a non-palisading lesion. Now, it's not now that doesn't mean it's, okay. Because what's this getting ready to do?
This, yeah, that's a mitotic figure.
Yeah, that's starting to get ready to
mitotic. This is this melanoma?
So if this were melanoma, so the problem with melanoma here is what? Like, how do we know this is like not even in the category? Little connections.
Those are desmosomes. So they're not
melanocytes of desmosomes.
Yeah.
They don't, exactly. So now you know that it's not, melanoma isn't even in the category of cell type.
Okay.
Okay. But we know it's a problem. Like whatever this is, it's not cool.
Yeah.
Right. So we already know the cell type now. Right?
Oh, these are keratinocytes.
These are keratinocytes, right? Okay. So then this is some type of either precancerous lesion called an actinic keratosis, or it's a squamous cell carcinoma. Do you know how we differentiate between an actinic keratosis and a squamous cell carcinoma? It's okay if you don't.
Wait, 1 second. Just So, yeah, the squamous cell, you'll see more invasion.
Okay.
Right?
Well, not necessarily. Well, invasion, by invasion, do you mean into the dermis?
Yeah.
Because there is a type of squamous cell that doesn't invade. It's called the squamous cell carcinoma in situ. Right. So that's just in the epidermis.
So you see more of the like a spread of the keratinocytes upward.
Good. Yeah, full thickness. Exactly.
Epidermis.
Exactly.
Agitoid spread.
Well, not okay. So you can see that in squamous cell. That's a good point. You can see that in squamous cell carcinomas, but the hallmark defining feature that I want you to remember and iron in, the number one thing that defines a squamous cell carcinoma in situ as opposed to an actinic keratosis is full thickness atypia. From the bottom to the top, there should be atypical cells. What you don't see in a squamous cell carcinoma is you start at the bottom with atypical cells. And then when you get to the top, look at these. What do you see here? This layer.
That's the...
So does this layer, let me ask you this, does this layer of cells look like these layers, like this cell or this cell or this cell?
They look like they're a little more mature.
Yeah. So you notice that there's an opposite type of pattern here in this entity. Before we saw the nevi, where they mature from top to bottom. This is maturing bottom to top.
Right. So that would favor actinic.
Yes, it would favor actinic. And then there's another thing over here, and it's harder to see. But do you see how there isn't nuclei over here in this specific region?
Yeah.
But there are nuclei over here. By the way, what do we call nuclei that's retained in the stratum corneum?
Porokeratosis.
Porokeratosis. And the porokeratosis is sparing this. By the way, what is this?
Oh, the hair follicle.
So what do hair follicles have? Still don't. Every time I try to look for one, I don't. Oh, wait. Nah, we got one. We got one. What's this?
That's a hair follicle.
That's a hair follicle. You see the hair shaft?
Yeah.
Now, the other features that they can have sebaceous glands attached. You may or may not see that. But this is something else. Look at this. Do you see this, and this? It's like whipping in and out of the section that you cut it.
Yeah.
And you see what's the color? Remember we went over that cuticle, that really eosinophilic cuticle on the cross section?
Still eccrine.
Yeah. So lumen, really eosinophilic cuticle.
Okay.
And then you have your layer. Now it's hard to tell how many layers in this case because it's whipping around so many times. So this is the area, this is a coil. This is the portion of the eccrine duct that whips around in a coil before it exits the skin. We call it an acrosyringium.
Right. Okay.
It's actually when it goes into the epidermis and out to the stratum corneum, that's an acrosyringium. Now the porokeratosis typically spares. There's sparing of the acrosyringeal structures and acrotracheal structures, meaning hair follicles and eccrine glands are spared. But yes, you're exactly right. This is an actinic keratosis. And again, what defines it is full thickness atypia. It's maturing bottom to top. No areas of invasion, just like Bowen's, or Bowen's, by the way, is another name for squamous cell carcinoma in situ of the skin. Now, sometimes you can have focal areas of transformation, which I don't really appreciate here. We'll get to that. So again, in an area like this, for example, now what do we think this is and why?
This looks like invasion.
Yeah. These are invasion of what? What's invading?
The keratinocyte.
Keratinocytes. Good. Yeah, keratinocytes. So this is an invasive. And by the way, what is this?
That's keratin pearl.
That's a keratin pearl, right? Okay, cool. And what is it coming? What is it? Let's see if I can find a good example. It's just so gunked up, I probably won't. But yes, that's the key finding. You should be able to recognize the area that is invasive. So this ended up being a case of an invasive squamous cell carcinoma. And I'm going to walk you through it because you see how there's porokeratosis over here?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's para. And there are atypical cells over here. But what are they doing when you get up top?
They mature.
They're maturing. So this is an example of a focal squamous cell carcinoma that's arising from an actinic keratosis.
Which is a precursor.
Yes, exactly. So that makes sense. It all makes sense. We're all putting it together. And notice how this is a structure that's being spared, right? This is probably some Adnexal structure here, right? By the way, this is also a feature you can see in actinic keratoses. Remember, maturing up here, atypical down here, but what's happening to the cells?
They're invading.
So they're invading. They may be invading down here. You can make an argument for that, but what's happening over here? What are these cells?
The heck?
You see how they're detaching?
Yeah.
So do you know, I don't know if you read to know the word for that. But this is called acantholysis.
Acantholysis.
Yeah, it's when those desmosomes that the keratinocytes normally have, they're detached from each other and they round up. So this is an example of an acantholytic actinic keratosis. So there's a lot of findings here. So number one, recognize that it's an actinic keratosis. So you have a not full thickness atypia, right? We agree?
Yeah.
Okay. We have acantholysis. The keratinocytes have detached from each other. They've rounded up. And then we also have focal areas of invasion, transformational squamous cell carcinoma invasion.
Yeah.
So we have an acantholytic actinic keratosis with focal squamous cell carcinoma transformation. And that's the diagnosis for this slide.
Diagnosis. Okay. Nice.
Large horn, right? Stratum corneum is pretty thick on this one.
Yeah.
Orthokeratosis or parakeratosis?
This is parakeratosis.
This is parakeratosis. Good. Okay. Sparing or including?
Stop moving so much. Looks like sparing.
Sparing. Yeah. And what is it sparing in this case? Tell me what structure this is.
Okay. This is an eccrine gland.
Yeah. And what portion? Good. And what part of the eccrine? So wait, stop. Sorry, I spoke too soon. Not good, Dasa. Not good. Why is it not good? You're close.
It's hard to see what the is.
Wait, is it a gland? Where are the glands located? Down here.
No, yeah, not a gland.
It's a what?
It's oh my God.
What's the name? Blank blank goose.
Duct.
Duck
Like,
goose. You go duck hunting. You hunt for the ducts. It says it's a duct, not a duck, right? Okay, so it's a duct. Remember, lumen. What type of cuticle is it? Eosinophilic cuticle. That's how you know, right? It's whipping in and out of the screen. Acrosyringium.
Okay.
And it's whipping in, and it's also whipping in the stratum corneum. That's why you have all these punched out holes.
Yeah. That's really thick.
Yeah. So this is a cutaneous horn. There's a number of different things that can cause cutaneous horns. Squamous cell carcinomas and actinic keratoses. There's a one, and that's why we have to biopsy these.
Right.
Yeah. By the way, what's this structure?
Well, down there is the sebaceous gland.
And it's connected to something, some adnexal structure.
That's a hair follicle. That's
a hair follicle, right? Okay, so you notice you don't have the perfect section here. You don't see the perfect hair follicle shaft. You don't see this perfect. You don't see perfect trichohyalin granules, which are those red granules associated. But you could make inferences here. You see a sebaceous gland attached to it. You see it's an adnexal structure.
Yeah.
Versus, versus this, which is a
eccrine duct.
Eccrine duct. Excellent. And the portion of the eccrine duct that this is?
The portion?
What part of the eccrine duct goes into, when we talk about the part that goes to the out from the epidermis to the stratum corneum?
The adnexa.
Adnexal includes eccrine ducts, hair follicles, and sebaceous glands.
Right.
This is called the acrosyringium.
Oh, so the acrosyringium includes
the acrosyringium here. Let's define it. So the acrosyringeal part, it is a part of the eccrine duct. Sorry, part of the eccrine duct specifically. So, of the eccrine duct, the part of the eccrine duct that enters to the epidermis, whips around and exits out the stratum corneum. in that whipping around circular helical fashion, we call that an acrosyringium.
Okay.
Okay, so basically, if I show you an eccrine duct in the dermis, that's not an acrosyringium. That's just an eccrine duct in the dermis. It's just a semantic terminology thing, but you got it now, right?
Yeah, it's in the epidermis.
Yes, epidermis and goes out to the stratum corneum.
Okay.
Now you said basilar pattern for something before, so what pattern is this?
This is basilar.
Basilar, yeah, from the basal. Okay, and by the way, this is what palisading looks like.
Yeah.
Lining up like sardines.
This is much clearer.
Yeah, all smushed together. Okay, so what is this? You know what this is.
This is BCC.
Yeah, this is a BCC. This is a nodular basal cell carcinoma. Okay, and this?
This is also
BCC. Good. Now, what's different about this BCC?
The pattern is just different.
Okay. Let's describe what about the pattern is different to me.
It's kind of like, I don't know, in some portions I see like papillary, or here I see more reticular.
Yeah, it's like what's in between it? See how this blue stuff?
That is like mucin.
Yeah, good. That's mucin, right? So there's a type of basal cell carcinoma that makes a lot of mucin. It's called an adenoid BCC.
Adenoid.
So
right.
Adenoid BCCs, adenoid basal cell carcinomas are the ones that they have like almost these little micro pools of mucin in between them, in between the tumor cells. But yes, excellent job. You recognize right away. You did not get thrown off by that. You recognize, nope, this is still a basal cell. I still recognize that there is palisading, and I still recognize it's a basilar pattern. I'm still calling it a basal, and I know that the mucin doesn't throw me off that. Okay, because that's normal for some basal cells. Good. And don't be fooled by the different ratios of hematoxylin and niacin.
Okay. So here I still see the palisading and I see the separation like
Good.
that.
Good. So this is
basal cell.
Okay. What type?
Nodular.
Let's see. Not nodular.
Or is it superficial?
Superficial spreading, yeah. Sometimes some people may call it micronodular or like focal but yes, I would accept superficial spreading in this case.
Okay.
All right. What are you seeing here? Well, what do you think these spaces are?
That is collagen.
Oh, so are you talking about these? Yeah, this is collagen. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. So in the dermis, there's collagen. There's as is here, as is there. There's collagen in a lot of places. In the dermis.
What are you doing? Those? Which? Those?
These white space. So let's talk about the white spaces.
Those are vessels.
Vessels. Good. How do you know they're vessels and not something else?
They have, well, first of all, they have red blood cells in them.
Good. Okay.
They have a thin they have a lumen with a thin lining.
Good. Perfect. Okay, let's talk about the lining. What about the lining is, let's say you didn't have the red blood cells, right? Let's say it was harder.
Okay.
What about the lining is telling you that they're vessels?
They're single cell, they're like super flat, don't have much cytoplasm.
Good, all good. And the nuclei are on what side?
On the luminal side.
Yeah, luminal side nuclei, exactly. So those are all good. So excellent, perfect, you nailed it. All observations, those are all the ways you can tell that something is a vessel and not something else. Cool. All right, so you see a lot of vessels.
This looks like this is a hemangioma.
Good. You see either hemangioma or cherry angioma, one of the following. So yes, perfect, exactly. So this ended up being a cherry angioma. Perfect. All right. What pattern do we see here? Oh, by the way, the Dr. Neat pattern for this one would be vascular, obviously.
Okay.
He might say, like, he might start saying, oh, what's the pattern? The right answer there would be vascular.
Got it. Okay.
So if I ask you, like, what's the pattern here? Well, I'll just tell, because I haven't gone over patterns for you. I'm not going to ask you an unfair question. I'll just tell you at the end of it. But what do you see here? Just tell me what you see.
Okay. There's thickened, well, okay, you're pointing to reedy ridges, but I'm looking at there's like thickened, is it porokeratosis?
Okay, so there is porokeratosis. Yes. There's something else in there too. Actually, here's a good example. So this is porokeratosis. What's this?
Oh, wait. This is, maybe I'm getting it confused with something else.
Go with your gut.
Oh, sorry, this is the granular layer. No?
This, well, is there much of a granular layer? So this,
there's like no granular layer.
so there's a diminution of the granular layer. In fact, you're actually technically right in a sense, because the reason you have porokeratosis is this is where the granular layer is supposed to be, right? When cells turn over so quickly, they don't have enough time to make a granular layer, and instead of making a granular layer, the granules along with the nuclei end up in the stratum corneum instead. Right. That's a heuristic. There are some exceptions, but that's typically what happens. So rapid turnover. What are these though? So they're not, you see how they're more like rounded and they're more than the flattened out, beautiful little pretty parakeratotic nuclei over here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is an inflammatory cell. Okay. It has multiple lobes. Looks like Mickey Mouse. So this is a small lobe, this is larger. Like some people think they look like ants, some people say they look like a Mickey Mouse ear, like the two small ears and the large one. But what inflammatory cell do you know that has multiple lobes?
Eosinophils.
Okay, that's one that has, how many lobes do eosinophils have, by the way?
I don't know.
2 lobes.
Okay. 2?
They have 2 lobes. But how many have 3 or more? Well, which ones have 3 or more? I'm pretty sure eosinophils are bilobes.
Basophils?
Basophils are essentially mast cells in the skin. So basophils, did you do cytopathology in blood?
Not really.
So I mean, so basophils. So when you say basophils, we're essentially the skin equivalent of that is essentially mast cells. So these don't look like granular have the mast cells. So these are actually neutrophils.
Okay.
So these are what neutrophils look like when they're in the stratum corneum. And don't, it's actually hard to see that at first. And it's hard to see, like, yeah, that's something you really got to get used to. It's the differentiating neutrophils in the stratum corneum, because there's conditions of the skin that have neutrophil trapping in the stratum corneum. Pockets of trapping. Okay. And then
that's familiar.
And then let's talk about the thickening, right? Which is called, again,
that's psoriasis.
This is psoriasis. Good. And why is it psoriasis? What are the features of psoriasis?
So it has acanthosis, which you see.
Okay. What kind of acanthosis? So it's regular. The key is like it's here is the same as here is the same as here. Here it's fairly much in the same. It's following the same beat of the same drum, and it's like basically more or less in order.
And the reedy ridges are elongated, right? They're regularly elongated.
Yeah.
They have.
So that's regular. Yeah. So this is, by the way, the pattern here will be psoriasiform. That's why it's like, not unsurprisingly, right? Yeah. It's just regular acanthosis. And then this is part of the feature as well. Neutrophils.
Neutrophils in the
what layer?
Stratum corneum.
Yes. Neutrophils in the stratum corneum is a feature of psoriasis. A bonus feature that you'll see, not always. In fact, I'm not going to bother you with that because I don't actually really see it here. But So yes, regular acanthosis. Neutrophils, and then there's some microabscesses of Cujo and Kogo or whatever, but you almost never see those in real, and you're probably not going to see them on the scope. By the way, parakeratosis or neutrophils? What's this one?
That's a neutrophil.
Good. All right, so you're getting it. Perfect. Let's see if there's any other features we can show you. Okay, good. So this is an example of psoriasis. Now, similar start again, like, not to belabor the point, but regular or irregular.
That looks fairly regular.
Good. Fairly regular. Now, what about these? Are these neutrophils or are these parakeratosis? Which one?
That's parakeratosis.
Parakeratosis. Good. Important to recognize the differences. Parakeratosis. It's hard to see over here, but like, what are these clumps? That's unfair for me to ask because it's like the quality of the slide isn't really the best. But we'll get there. Okay, like this. This is not parakeratosis. These are what?
I guess, I mean, they don't look so lobed.
So they don't have to be, when you say those look so lobed, they don't have to be connected, by the way. Oftentimes the lobes detach from each other. Just FYI.
Okay, so then they'd be the neutrophil.
Yeah. And look how different that is from like this line, for example. This parakeratosis flattens out. Like this is parakeratosis.
Yeah, okay.
Flattens. This neutrophil lobes retain some of their circularity when they're in the stratum corneum.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, so this is another example. And oh yeah, here's the bonus I wanted to show you. What's this?
That's a capillary.
Yeah, it's a capillary, and they're really going up top, right?
Yeah. So
that's another feature of psoriasis. It's the Auspitz sign. When you rip off some of the scale, you get those pinpoint bleeding. You may have remembered that. Yep. You're literally seeing it right over here.
Cool. Nice.
It's another example of psoriasis. Okay, cool. Now, again, regular or irregular?
Irregular.
Irregular. Good. So that's an important differentiating feature. Like you have to be able to say, okay, well, wait, this is not regular. This is irregular. And where does it look like this tissue came from?
I guess the skin. No.
Yeah, but where on this? Yeah, but what side of the body? Like, look at this layer. What does this look like? Almost. What does this almost resemble? Like this layer. There's an extra layer of have you heard of
like acral?
Go ahead. I didn't hear you.
Acral?
Yeah, it looks like acral skin, specifically volar skin. So acral, by the way, just means hands and feet. Some people consider like other areas like the scalp acral, but like for your purposes, hands and feet. But that can include the dorsum of the hand and dorsum of the feet.
Okay.
Volar, the word volar means palms and soles as well. It's specifically palms and soles, not as well, specifically palms and soles.
Okay.
And that's important because you have this layer of like, it almost looks like a stratum lucidum. Have you heard of the stratum lucidum?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it almost looks like a stratum lucidum. Right? So you'd think it's from the palms and soles if you look at it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, how do we know it's not?
Like maybe the glands.
Okay, so what glands do we have on our palms and soles?
Sweat glands.
Okay.
You don't see hair follicles.
You don't see hair follicles. Do we see hair follicles here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So something's up here. So first off, we know that this is not the palms or soles because we don't have hair follicles on our palms or soles. That should not be here. And it's here. Okay. So this is a finding called the hairy palm sign. Right? Aptly named. So what happens when have you heard of the itch scratch cycle? When you just have an area of skin, you scratch and you just scratch again and again and again, it itches more and itches more. And you keep scratching.
So it just thickens the
Yeah,
skin.
it's basically, the skin is basically developing its own type of volar type of ish morphology to protect itself from the patient's nails.
Right.
And that looks like volar skin. So this is lichen simplex chronicus.
Right.
That's what lichen simplex chronicus looks like. Burn this into your mind. Irregular acanthosis. And you'll notice the acanthosis is more pronounced adnexal structures, right?
Yeah.
So again, an adnexal just means hair follicles, eccrine glands, eccrine ducts, and sebaceous glands and ducts as well.
So where do you usually see lichen simplex chronicus?
You usually, and well, let's do a little. So I'll tell you, there's several areas you can see. Back of the neck is one. This is not a back of the neck, but the other common area you can see, and you see how these are a lot of, what are these, by the way?
Those are vessels.
Vessels, yes. Now you notice you didn't have the red blood cells to give it away for you, but you were able to tell that because
they have the lumen and the lining with the nucleus on the lumen side.
yes, luminal side nuclei. Perfect. Okay, now there's a lot of them here, right? There are a lot of these vessels over here.
Yeah.
And there's even some, what do you see here? See some red blood cells here. That might even be just procedural. But there may be some, basically what I'm getting at is what type of change gives you a lot of nodular-like proliferation of vessels to try to desperately get some to regulate the flow of circulation. Like if you had a job where you're standing all day.
Oh, I guess. Well, if you're sorry, what was your initial question?
Yeah, so basically, yeah, what kind of change is this? This is basically what you have to read my mind kind of thing. This is stasis.
That's what?
So this is this is a nodular proliferation of the blood vessels,
right?
And you see that in stasis change.
Oh.
Basically, it's a change you see where there's like a lot. You're just someone's at work, they're standing all day. They, by the way, you can actually see that they've been really getting out. You can see the previously existing, like, but anyway. So basically, they're standing all day. It's probably from the leg.
Okay.
Is basically what it is. That you commonly see this finding in lower extremities.
Okay.
And the reason this is happening is because it's a reactive process to the blood not being able to get back up. It's like saying, okay, well, I'm not getting enough oxygen. Like the blood's not getting back up. Let me do everything I can to get every last bit of blood to every remaining piece of tissue that I have here, because we're not doing a good enough job.
Interesting.
Yeah, so you commonly see that of the legs of people who have stasis changes. So either cannonball angioplasia, nodular angioplasia, whatever name, the Elston calls it cannonball angioplasia sometimes. Anyway.
Okay. Nice.
Right. So let's take a look at this. So again, very similar. So you have acanthosis, right?
Yeah.
In this, and you have, what layer does this look like?
This is, oh, wait 1 second.
Is there a lag? Are you like lagging behind?
I don't know. That what you're pointing to now is the stratum.
Yeah.
lucidum.
Yeah, it looks like a stratum lucidum. Or at least we know it looks, is it a stratum lucidum?
I mean, it looks like it.
No, I know it looks like it, but it can be indistinguishable. It can be indistinguishable, right? But there's one way we know that it's not a stratum lucidum. I just circled something.
I see.
What's this? This is trying to form a baby what?
Maybe oh boy.
A better example of it. So it's the most baby, it was a baby version of it, so you may not recognize it. But that might be all we have. Here's another one trying to form. It might just be a little cyst incidentally, but well, let's take a look at what we have. This is muscle. These are vessels, not ducts. And really, it might actually just be this that gives it away. So let's take a look at it more, I guess. Look at it's subtle. I don't blame you for if you don't know this. Of course not. I'm not blaming you for anything if you don't know it, but there is a little bit of an area that looks like it might be trying to form a germinative layer here. This kind of cystic, it looks like a little bit of keratinaceous cyst you see, but it's organized in this oval kind of way.
Yeah.
Like that's isn't that reminiscent of something that you saw here? That oval kind of cyst.
That's the hair follicle.
This is a baby hair follicle.
Okay.
So is it a real stratum lucidum?
So no.
No, it cannot be a stratum lucidum.
Yeah.
Why can't it be a stratum lucidum?
Because you don't see hair follicles in areas like stratum lucidum.
Yes,
True
exactly. Exactly. And this may look a little bit more regular, but there's not a lot of adnexa, and that may be tripping you off. But if you look over here, there's some areas where it's thicker. And so this is an example. And the other feature you see how this, you see the what am I pointing to here? This like collagen. You see the collagen?
Mm-hmm.
See how it's vertically oriented?
Yeah.
In the reedy, that's another thing. When these reedy ridges get elongated, the collagen kind of tracks it up. That's another feature of this entity. And if we look back over here, we probably might even find some examples of maybe a little bit tracking up over here. Let's see if we have better features. Yeah, so not as pronounced here. So sometimes you don't have all the features, but here you didn't have all the best hair follicle. But here, what you do have, you have beautiful vertically oriented collagen.
Yeah.
Typically, collagen is not vertically oriented.
Okay.
Typically in the dermis, it is horizontally oriented. So that's another feature of the same thing, which is
Lichen simplex.
Lichen simplex chronicus. By the way, if this wasn't like a plaque, if this was just a papule or a bunch of papules that a patient had, same exact pathology, just prurigo nodularis.
Right. I learned about
it. Exactly. So prurigo nodularis and Lichen simplex chronicus look exactly the same. It's just differentiated by their clinical appearance.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. What pattern do you see over here? Here, right here.
That is spongiosis.
That is. And is it just a little bit of spongiosis?
A lot of spongiosis.
A lot of spongiosis. By the way, what's this?
Is that orthokeratin? No. Is that what the heck?
Because remember, look at where the layer is. Look at the level.
Oh yeah, not the level.
In fact, there's so much spongiosis, there's so much fluid that this is the fluid.
Oh wow.
So this is serum.
Oh.
So this is the serous fluid, forms that all lovely crusty goo.
Yeah, super edematous. Okay.
Yeah. And so this is, and down here you can see, okay, you can see some so when you see lymphocytes around vessels, what do we call that, by the way? What let me see if I can find examples, but lymphocytes around vessels is what pattern?
Langerhans cell.
No. If I see lymphocytes around blood vessels, it's a perivascular pattern. That's what I'm getting at.
Oh, okay.
So perivascular just means, so this is a superficial perivascular. It's the superficial blood vessels. There's lymphocytes around them. You also actually, in this case, you can see some examples of extravasated erythrocytes. That's incidentally, that's not that may be procedural incidentally. That's not what that doesn't have to do with this diagnosis is.
Okay.
And there's another cell type I'm looking for that you don't always see here. But actually, I think I might have found it. Let me see. Let me zoom in. Okay. So what do you make of this? Cell. It's because it's not a red blood cell. Why? Because look at this.
The nucleus in it.
It has a nucleus, so you know it's not a red blood cell.
Yeah.
So what kind of cell do you think it is? Here's a better example, actually. Actually, this may have not been a Basal even. Let's look at this. How many lobes?
Two.
Oh, this is a perfect example.
Is EO.
It's an eosinophil. And by the way, this is also an eosinophil.
Yeah, okay. The other ones.
Okay, so let's put it together, right? So you have spongiosis.
Spongiosis. You have eosinophils, perivascular.
What kind of conditions are you thinking of? And it's specific diagnosis. There's like, it's a broad category.
Spongiotic.
Yeah, good. Spongiotic dermatitis. Exactly. Good job. And that is the diagnosis. The diagnosis is spongiotic dermatitis because that is often as far as you can get on path with this. But give me some examples of what you think. Give me some examples of what you know are within that category. Like what diagnoses can be made clinically that fall under the histologic diagnosis of spongiotic dermatitis.
Contact dermatitis.
Okay, good.
Eczema.
Eczema, good, excellent. Yeah, and those are very, very common. Yeah, and other things, arthropods can sometimes look, although there are other things I could find. But yes, you nailed it. Drug reactions as well. But yes, commonly eczema. And eczema can look and often does look exactly like this. And allergic contact dermatitis as well.
Okay.
This is like a classic example of eczema.
I also learned that there's like a bean-shaped nuclei sign. You see for spongiotic dermatitis, you can often see bean-shaped nuclei.
Oh, are you talking about the Langerhans presenting type of?
Yeah.
Allergic yes. Okay, yeah, that is okay. So yes, academically, yes, you will not be asked that tomorrow. I guarantee you.
Okay.
Like when Dr. Need starts asking you all those pimp questions, he's not going to be asking that.
All right.
Okay. Cool. All right, what pattern do you see over here? First of all, what color?
Super purple.
Super purple with some areas of, at least some areas.
Of black.
Jet black.
So that's
jet black inflammatory cells. Let's confirm. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, another
black. So some areas maybe, but like yes, there's definitely lymphocytes for sure. And is it just a band or is it obscuring the dermal epidermal junction?
It looks like it's obscuring.
Obscuring. So then, okay, that's important because that makes it what type of pattern?
Lichenoid.
And by the way, I think actually technically Dr. Neat's lichenoid pattern doesn't have to obscure the dermal epidermal junction. So if you just see a band, you can say lichenoid, he'll be okay with that. But just so you know, a lichenoid interface dermatitis has to obscure the dermal epidermal junction. That's what makes it lichenoid, because if you think about it, that's what makes it attacking the skin. It has to be at the skin. It has to be at the epidermis to attack the epidermis. Okay. Now let's talk about the epidermis.
Okay, so
let's start from the top.
They're like blunted root ridges.
Okay. Well, so you can do it however you want. Sometimes, okay, fine. Go for it. You do it your way. I'm not gonna. So blunted epidermis, I agree. But what about what else do you see about the ridges if we were to unobscure this?
Sawtooth.
Perfect. Yes, sawtooth. Yes. That's not the best sawtooth, but yes, good job. I recognize that. Okay. What about the stratum corneum?
Well, it's thickened.
Thickened. Okay. So it's what kind of thickening is it?
It's it looks parakeratotic.
Is it?
Oh no. I'm getting confused with all the empty.
Oh, I see. Yeah, but that's normal. So basically sometimes, so I see what you're saying. When you have a basket weave epidermis, as it transitions from like that basket weave normal, so right, you can have a perforaceous hyperkeratosis, you can have a basket weave, so orthohyperkeratosis, and you can have a compact orthokeratotic horn, right? Now, as we go in between, what do you think that little transition period is between basket weave orthohyperkeratosis and compact hyperkeratosis, orthokeratosis. Right?
What?
These are the remaining little vacuoles from what was normally a basket weave.
Uh-huh.
Let's just see that. See how the basket weave is here?
Oh, yeah.
As it gets more compact, it looks like it's just vacuoles, right?
I see.
So compact orthohyperkeratosis.
Okay. Yeah, I see that.
More granulosis or less granulosis?
More.
Okay, normal shape or wedge shape?
Wedge.
Wedge shape. Compact orthohyperkeratosis, wedge shape hypergranulosis, sawtooth 3-day ridges. What are these?
Are you pointing to the lymphocytes?
I will circle what I'm pointing to. Here you go. This.
Eosinophil.
That's a good thought, but it's really kind of like emulsified pink rather than, and it's not granular like an eosinophil would be. And it would be like here, for example. Actually, this might be violating the rule. Actually, no, it's not. This. So why is this not an eosinophil? Let's discuss. In eosinophil, first of all, this one doesn't have a nucleus.
Doesn't even have.
Its nucleus is gone. Not because it didn't have one ever, but it's gone. Right? But you'll notice that this material is the same color as this material, same color as this material. It's not like when we look at an eosinophil, I'm not going to try looking for eosinophils in this entity, by the way. Do you know why?
I guess it's not inflammatory.
Well, you mentioned a lot of features of a given entity, right? You said sawtooth, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned orthohyperkeratosis, you mentioned wedge shaped hyperkeratosis. These are all features of a very specific, and lichenoid infiltrate. These are all features of
This is lichen planus.
Lichen planus, yes, exactly. So I imagine it's lichen planus.
Yeah.
Right. So lichen planus, it's very rare to find eosinophils in lichen planus, just so you know. And if you do, you should question the diagnosis of lichen planus unless you think it's a lichenoid drug reaction, in which case you can see EOs, or it's a hypertrophic variant of lichen planus, in which case you have EOs. But this is a very homogeneous type of pink color. It's a little bit lighter than eosinophils. It's not granular. It's more homogeneous than the granular color. Okay. Do you see that?
Yeah.
So this is basically dead cells. These are called dead reds. Or in the case of lichen planus, we specifically call that what name? They're called civat bodies in lichen planus.
What is it called?
Civat, CIVA. So it's not a fancy, it's really just a fancy name for the same thing. CIVATTE, civat bodies.
Civat bodies.
They're rounded, they're homogeneous. That's the key difference. They're homogeneous. And eosinophils are granular. They're not homogeneous.
Got it.
So what they are is basically, look, I mean, it makes sense. We'll put it together. Look, so the lymphocytes are attacking the epidermis here.
Mm-hmm.
See that?
Yeah.
And when the lymphocytes are attacking the epidermis, the cells are dying.
Yep.
And then they're spilling out when the cells die, because remember, the keratinocytes have contents, and they're spilling out all the way down to the melanophage as what?
Those are, I mean, it's the
they're losing their pigment. See that?
Pigment from those are melanophages.
So it's pigment from the keratinocytes as they die, and they're getting
falls out.
Yeah, they're getting picked up by the melanophages that falls out. Exactly.
Those are melanophages.
Yeah. And you see how they're like dendritic?
Yeah.
So they're gobbling up, and they're basically going, where are they going? They're going back to the arteries. I mean, sorry, the capillaries. They're going back to the post-capillary venules to return all that pigment.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. That's how they're the cleanup crew.
Nice.
Similar story here, right? And by the way, here you can see more of them. Like, remember, granular or homogeneous?
Homogeneous.
Homogeneous, and they're spilling out their pigment. Same, very, very similar story. And is this like ortho? So what type of stratum corneum is it?
It's the ortho.
Uh-huh.
This.
Okay, good. And so and what kind of pattern is it, by the way?
The lichenoid.
Lichenoid pattern. Yeah, exactly. Sawtooth. This is a diagnosis of what?
We said sawtooth.
Lichen planus again.
Planus.
Very similar story here. Okay, I'm not going to belabor the point of lichen planus. Okay. Now, what's the pattern here?
This
Mm-hmm.
looks regularly.
Just before we get to the further classification, let's not jump ahead.
Okay, I'm just not understanding what you mean by pattern.
But well, the pattern. Well, so there's a pattern. Because remember, you said regular. That's a classification of like, okay, well, if you're thinking psoriasiform or acanthosis, like first mention there's acanthosis, then say if it's like.
And then okay.
You see what I'm saying? Okay, that's fine. Okay. Yes, so it's regular. I agree with you though. You're right. There's a regular acanthosis. However, and you may look at this and be like, oh, wait a minute, is this psoriasis? Well, not quite. There's no neutrophils, right? And there's not a whole lot of para. Maybe in some areas. And you'd be like, oh, wait, is there skipping para? Is there one of those conditions? But it's important, and there is an entity, and this is important, to not tunnel vision, right? So some people like to zoom in real quick. This is an entity where you have to be very careful to not zoom in.
Okay.
And and this will come in time, but you want to recognize the this and the this.
Oh, this is porokeratosis.
Yes, good. This is porokeratosis. How did you know it was porokeratosis?
From the cornoid lamella.
Cornoid. What is a cornoid lamella?
That's the part of it. That's like the blotch of porokeratosis with the invagination of the epidermis. It's like the ring part of the.
Yes, it is. This forms the ring part of the porokeratosis. And now there's a very important point about the cornoid lamella. Do you know why cornoid lamellas form?
No.
Let's take a look at where they originate from, shall we? Let's track it down. What do you see here? What's happening to the poor little keratinocytes that happen to be in the unlucky position?
They're dying.
They're dying. Yes. Good. They're dying. These are dead reds. These are dyskeratotic keratinocytes. So the reason why you have cornoid lamellas is because there's a specific area encircled, or however it's formed, that form dead keratinocytes, and they die in such a way that forms that 45-degree angle or whatever angle it is. So and this is an important point because all cornoid lamella have dyskeratotic keratinocytes. All of them, with no exception.
Okay.
So if you're ever confused, here it's obvious, but if you're ever confused about whether something's a cornoid lamella or not, they should always be dead reds. And if you're not seeing on one section, step section it. Look at another section. Look at another cut it through the block. If there are no dead reds anywhere, it's not a cornoid lamella.
Okay.
Oh, and the other point is, it's a very, very annoying mimicker because of one thing between these two cornoid lamellas is the center of the porokeratosis, and the center of a porokeratosis can look like anything in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So the cornoid lamella is really the thing that will aid your diagnosis. Not aid, like make your diagnosis.
It will make the diagnosis. Yes. Without a cornoid lamella, you will not make the diagnosis of porokeratosis.
Okay.
In fact, this could be incredibly variable. You can have you can have lichenoid reaction patterns. You can have psoriasiform reaction patterns, as you're seeing here. It can look like anything in between.
Yeah.
So it's easy to tunnel vision, and it's the worst thing to do because in porokeratosis, this area right here between the cornoid lamella is the most useless diagnostic area you could ever imagine.
Mhm.
It means nothing. Everything in between the cornoid lamella is meaningless unless you already know it's a porokeratosis and you're trying to subtype it for whatever reason. But if you don't know it's a porokeratosis, this is all meaningless, and you'll just go on a waste of time zooming into this.
It also depends how the dermatologist shaves it. Like, he
Okay.
don't necessarily
Mhm.
go from, you know, from
Yes,
either to the other.
assuming that the dermatologist is doing a normal standard shave and not trying to trick you, correct? Yes, we're pretty good. We're pretty good about shaving porokeratosis. Like we're pretty good at, or trying to torture our patient by only shaving half the porokeratosis just for fun and games. We're not like that. Promise.
Okay.
All right. What do we see here?
Okay. So again, there's like no reedy ridges. It's totally flat. There's a thickened corneal layer.
Okay. Yeah. Which is called?
I can't see if it's para or ortho keratosis.
You can you can say hyper at minimum, hyperkeratosis. You don't have to specify. It's an unspecified term.
Hyperkeratosis. This is parakeratosis.
In this case, it is
parakeratosis.
Parakeratosis. Yeah, good. Okay, so it's parakeratosis, and there's some areas of ortho. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there something else we want to see? Man, what could it be? Could this be Hadassah? Could it be psoriasis? Could it be an actinic keratosis?
Well, psoriasis would have, like, this one in the middle. Can you zoom out a little here?
This one in the middle, what?
The shave in the middle.
Yeah.
Has the reedy ridges look so blunted, doesn't have, well, at the edges it has more of
it does look pretty blunted. So that's not really leading me towards psoriasis. It's not, I don't see atypia. It's not really leading me toward any type of actinic keratosis or squamous cell carcinoma.
Yeah.
There is a finding here we went over several times in the slide review, though, and this will take time to spot it. But when you get there, you'll get there.
Hey, okay. It's a lot of information.
In fact, you could make the diagnosis from here. And you will. Eventually, you will. I'm telling you.
Well, is this also porokeratosis?
Yes. Why?
What? I'm trying to find.
They're here. They're here. They're here.
Okay, that one I saw, but it wasn't so clear. Like,
they're
that
also
doesn't
here.
look. Yeah, these don't look like the other ones.
That's the point. That's the point. So remember, cornoid lamellas are not. Oh, I gave you a very obvious example before.
Yeah.
Cornoid lamellas are not always going to be the most easily presenting things, but that's the key of being able to spot it from afar. Now, probably the easiest one of these is this one.
Yeah,
Even that one's not perfect, but you do see the layers of parakeratosis. You do see it's on an angle, and you do see on the bottom.
You have the dead
reds.
keratinocytes, yeah.
Layers of parakeratosis, dead reds. That's a porokeratosis. And you'll notice again, middle of a porokeratosis can look like
psoriasis.
anything.
Oh, it doesn't look like psoriasis.
No, it doesn't even, that didn't even look like psoriasis. Here's another corner lamella, and this is more subtle. Like, okay, little, but there it is, right?
Oh, yeah.
Look, and here's another cornoid lamella. Now, this dermatologist tried to trick us, right? There's cornoid lamellas everywhere. Actually, they didn't. There are certain types of porokeratosis that can look like that. But anyway, the point is that this is what, and by the way, this is how Dr. Neat has asked me this. Dr. Neat has just pulled this up and been like, what do you think this is? And sometimes he's gotten even worse to me. He's been like, it would be like this. Okay, what do you think it is? Where he pulls the porokeratosis out of the field of view. But it was in the field of view long enough for him to expect me to see it, right? So you'll get it. You'll get it in time. Like, be able to recognize this type of structure from low power. And the reason it's important to be able to recognize this type of structure from low power is you will lose so much time and waste so much time trying to find everything at high power when it's a complete waste of time, because porokeratosis can look like anything in non-cornoid lamella areas.
Got it.
That's the lesson. Okay. What's this type of structure?
This is a cyst.
Cyst. What kind of cyst? Perforaceous keratin.
This is epidermal inclusion.
Yeah, epidermal inclusion cyst, and it has a what layer?
It has a granular layer.
Granular layer. Good. As opposed to this, which is?
That's a pilar.
Good. That's a pilar cyst. Excellent. Yeah, because it does not have
doesn't have granular layer, and it has very compact keratin.
Very compact keratin. Good. Exactly. Okay. So this is a punch biopsy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, there's not a whole lot going on here. So when there's not a whole lot going on,
Get closer.
Except when we see this, there's now all of a sudden there's quite a bit going on. So what's going on?
Those look, well, I don't know what you're circling right now.
Okay,
there.
Let's start with this.
There, that is yeast.
Okay, well, these are yeast, yeast forms, like, it's like there's okay, and then what are the
this is spaghetti and meatballs.
Yeah, spaghetti and meatballs, perfect. Which is?
Yeah.
Which sorry.
This is tinea versicolor.
Tinea versicolor, yeah. Now, one little hint I'll give you when you're dealing with tinea versicolor, you see how like the scale is very, very fine over here. It's not like, as opposed to just this compact scale. When you're dealing with the meatballs and spaghetti, you can almost like and clinically when you look at this too, it's very fine scaling.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if I can get another examples of this beautiful perforaceous scale that you can just easily scale off. It's not like this. Some other forms of like tinea cruris have this really super compact. It's a little perforaceous here. But yes, you're correct. This is the spaghetti and meatball. Exactly as you said, tinea versicolor. This is a diagnosis you should be able to just make looking at this like that.
This is one of that volcano one. What was it called?
The exoendophytic pattern.
The keratoacanthoma.
Good, keratoacanthoma. Excellent. Dome-shaped papule, not a whole lot else. With, what are these?
Sebaceous gland.
Wait, these are sebaceous glands. I feel like I swear there's probably a lag or something, but like, but yes, these are sebaceous glands. But what are these?
That's a vessel.
It's a vessel. Yes, good. And then in this stroma is there a lot of what? Tell me about the stroma, like of this lesion.
It looks very wavy.
Okay, there are wavy, yes.
It's like spindly,
yeah, so in this case, yeah, so what are the three categories of wavy or spindly? Really, well, not really wavy, but like, let's talk about, we'll get to the degrees of waviness, but like spindle in general, like what are the categories?
So you can have like a
Neural, that's one category. Good.
um
What other broad category has spindle celled
um
nuclei? So muscle,
right.
muscles have it.
Yeah, fibromas.
Okay. Yeah. So which, yeah, fibroblasts, basically. Exactly. Good. So in this case, we have a dome-shaped nothing that has vessels. So this is actually a very classical entity. When you see a dome shape that has spindle cells intervening between and vessels in it, very small lesion that has a papule. It's called a.
This is angiofibroma.
Yes, exactly. This is an angiofibroma. Another name for it is fibrous papule.
Fibrous papule. Okay.
Okay. So that was an angiofibroma. This, let's
Is
see if I want
dermatitis.
to, yeah, okay. So let's see if I can get a good example. So I'm not, so wait, let's, before we get ahead of ourselves. So I don't think this is a dermatofibroma. Well, let's see what let's just characterize it. So punch biopsy, right?
Okay.
Now, so punch biopsy, we agree. And then there's like some inflammatory reactive patterns here, right? So what are the inflammatory reactive patterns that we're seeing?
Lymphocytic.
Well,
I have to look
in
at
the
pattern.
epidermis, just pattern, like so yeah, we'll go over the patterns, but like, what do you see in the epidermis? You see lysosomes, right?
Yeah. Spongiosis.
There's definitely spongiosis. No disagreement. Okay. Actually, it might be right. This may be a dermatofibroma now that you're asking, but yeah, because there's acanthosis of it as well. But look at what actually no. Here's the issue. The issue is this. Do you see the problem here? Look, see how this is really edematous, the dermis?
Yeah.
It's really edematous dermis, and there's a lot of inflammation underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
So what condition gives you, I mean, there is spongiosis, probably multiple things going on here, but really the key is this edema. There's dermal edema, splitting up those collagen fibers into smaller ones with a layer, almost a lichenoid band, but it's not, it's a lichenoid band, but it's not a lichenoid interface dermatitis, but it's lichenoid band of inflammatory cells, in these case, lymphocytes.
Oh, this is lichen sclerosis.
Yeah, lichen sclerosis heterotrophicus, right? So you got the red, white, and the blue.
Okay.
That's funny. Excellent. Good job. Now this is some sort of neoplasm, right? So let's go over what you're seeing here.
All right, so it's spindle cells
Mm-hmm.
in this is kind of whirly.
Do you say whirly?
Yeah.
Okay. In some areas, maybe. I'm not seeing which areas you're saying that are whirly, like this area.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe a little bit. There's some plump areas here, but let's classify it. So there are spindle cells. They're plump though. So when you say plump spindle cells in a very like fibrotic stroma, like what are some things that can come to your mind? Like what's probably coming to your mind? Well, let's just start off here. Like, look, usually when you have tumors that like efface the epidermis, does the epidermis get thinner or thicker?
Thinner.
Thinner. In this case, is the epidermis getting thinner?
Mm, Well, it's
Not
definitely
really.
base,
It's about the
but
same size, if anything. If anything, some areas are thicker.
yeah.
So there's one type of tumor that does that. There's a number, like one of them does this anyway. These cells look like plump
Well,
fibroblasts. Yeah, go ahead.
is this the dermatofibroma?
This is a dermatofibroma. Let's go for more obvious findings because that wasn't so easy. But here you notice how, again, like there's a tumor and it's thickened, if anything, not thinned.
Mm-hmm.
There's also this finding over here, which dermatofibromas typically do. It's called follicular induction. It's not a true, sometimes it looks like a basal cell carcinoma. This is sebaceous induction. So they can actually induce growth of follicular structures and sebaceous structures. And sometimes it can be tricky because sometimes it can look like it's a basal cell. Like, is this a basal cell? No, it's follicular induction from an underlying dermatofibroma.
Yeah.
The other thing you can see in dermatofibroma, look at the edge. Ignore the artifact. See the edge over here?
It's like the trapped collagen.
Yes, trapping these collagen balls. Exactly. Okay. Now, what you probably will see is not this. You'll probably see just, in real world dermatology, where, everyone likes to do this, but we'll get a biopsy like that or something. So you'll see the top of it, and you'll have to infer based on increased thickness, some collagen density, and some increased cellularity, and maybe thickness of the epidermis, that this is the top of a dermatofibroma. Dr. Neat loves asking that. Top of a DF.
Okay. But you still see the collagen trappings.
Yes. Yes. So you can see sometimes. You don't always. You're lucky here. You don't always see it. The classic way is the sides, but yes, I agree. Like at the edge of any lesion in 3-dimensional, you can see it. So yes, you see collagen ball trapping here at the top. Sometimes it gets really tough. Sometimes like you'll just see this. But you'll see like, oh, wait a minute, there's some increased fibroblasts over here, blah, blah, blah. And like, oh, now that I'm looking, the epidermis seems a little thick where that is. Or if you're lucky, you can see some sebaceous induction or follicular induction, and you'll know it's the top of a dermatofibroma because they don't always cut that deep.
Yeah.
Dr. Neat loves asking top of a DF, by the way. And this is, what kind of collagen is this?
This also looks like the collagen.
Not trapping. It's trapped in the middle and everywhere, if anything. What color?
It's pink.
Pink. Really pink, like bubble gum.
Oh, is this scar tissue?
It is a type of scar.
This is
Keloid, yes. When the collagen fibers are so thick that it's not an issue. Like if you look at the dermatofibroma, like look at the collagen, like yes, they're red, if anything, not pink. And also they're not that extensively thick. There's focal areas of collagen trapping ball. You see how it's focal collagen trapping areas of balls? Here it's like these really, really thick bundles.
Yeah.
Collagen. That's what a keloid looks like. It's keloidal collagen.
Yeah, I see that.
And here, it's somewhere in between. So it's not focal areas. It's still, there's still bundles. They're bands. Hold on. What the? Did that go out for you too? Hold on. Let me see. Yeah, there we go. Okay, perfect. We're back. So here, there's still bundles, right? They're not just little balls of collagen trapping, and there's fibroblasts too. They're laying it down, but it's not a keloid.
No. So it's
not just like, yeah, and it's not just like sorry, you were gonna say?
I was gonna say just some other type of scar.
Yeah, some other type of scar. This is more than I would see for a normal scar. Let's go over normal scar. Normal scar has vertically oriented vessels in a faced epidermis, so you don't see any reading in the epidermis, right?
Yeah.
And you see the vessels are oriented which way? North, south.
Yeah, perpendicular.
Yeah. And then this is the type of tissue, the type of bundles you see in scar tissue.
Okay.
Fibroblasts, bundles. In this case,
that's hypertrophic.
That's hypertrophic, exactly. So this is a
Hypertrophic scar.
Hypertrophic scar. This is just a normal scar.
Okay.
Square biopsy, and this is like just everywhere. It's just bundles of collagen with some interspaced with some inflammatory cells. Top to bottom. There's an inflammatory condition that can cause this condition that gives you a very squared off type of biopsy. Other things noted, by the way. What's this?
That is a vessel.
Okay. And then what's this?
Also vessels.
These are, well, it could be tricky. There's this is, look how deep it is. So it's deep, and there's like a number of like little small. The vessels at this level are typically larger, by the way. They're not like capillaries.
Is this eccrine?
Yeah, but there's something wrong with them. Look at all the, are they inflamed?
Lots of lymphocytes around.
Lots of lymphocytes. They're inflamed. Okay, so there's something. They're being attacked, and they're losing. There's no periacrine fat, right? There's a loss. When we normally see eccrine glands, there's some fat interspaced between them.
Okay.
In this case, there's no fat. So that's another feature of this entity. You lose a periacrine fat. So this is called, in fact, the fat, you can go down and down, and you really don't catch fat. So this is called morphia.
Yeah, I didn't get to this one.
Oh, that's okay. Red, white, and blue.
Red, white, and blue.
Edematous.
This is scar. No.
Edematous. I mean, well, it's not quite a scar because there are some still reedy there, and I'm not saying. And even though you did pick up on this vessel, it's north-south. I agree. Problem is, what's explaining all the edema? Dermal edema and this lichenoid band. We just went over it.
I know, my brain is fried.
All right, we're almost done, by the way. In fact, I probably even when I did the last one, this was probably, oh yeah, that's a number of them. Lichen sclerosis with, yeah, exactly. So this is lichen sclerosis atrophigus again.
Okay, so let me go over it so I understand.
Yeah.
Remember.
Okay.
So in lichen sclerosis, you have the reedy ridges are atrophic, so they're like effaced.
Okay. Yeah, you do have some effacements.
The very edematous dermis, very pale, smudgy looking, and the band of lymphocytes underneath that. Red, white, and blue.
Yeah, so here's the red, here's the white, and here's your blue. Red, white, blue.
Nice. Okay.
But really, it's just on a deeper level, knowing that what's happening here is that you have a lymphocytic band and it's going downward, by the way. And sometimes you could even see morphia. It can progress to morphia. The direction it's going is down the band.
Okay.
Okay, looks, what pattern?
Spongiotic.
Is it? Let's see. Is this all right? A little spongiotic, but what other pattern?
It's not so. Is it psoriatic?
Psoriasiform, yes.
Psoriasiform.
Because you have regular acanthosis.
Yeah.
Or even, I'm not sure if you consider
the thing that I was thinking otherwise was the like hockey stick like projections.
Oh, even that. So like when you have elongation of the reedy, so anytime you have like this elongation of reedy ridges like this, and the extension of the dermal papilla up, this is the pattern of at least one of the patterns of psoriasiform.
Okay.
But notice you see this clear sharp cutoff?
Oh yeah. This is clear cell something.
Clear cell.
Well,
think about it. What do we call thickening of the skin?
Acanthosis.
Okay, and what do we
Clear
call
cell
it?
acanthoma.
Yeah, exactly. Clear cell acanthoma. Very simple.
Okay.
Some type of tumor. Again, we're in the spindle category. What are our 3 categories of spindle cells?
This is neural.
This is neural. How do you know this is neural?
It's very spindly.
And well, spindle again. Well, spindle itself can be any of the 3.
Doesn't have to be, right. I don't know. I didn't study this.
Yeah, it's really wavy. It's really like you see like the dolphin. It's like dolphins jumping over. It's like it's S-shaped, comma shaped.
Okay.
See how this is a comma shape?
Yeah.
Or wavy. So that's an indication that it's neural. Also, that clear, lighter background can sometimes help you. And it's haphazard. Now, when you see it's haphazard, they're not all the ducks are all swimming in the row. They're kind of like all over the place.
Yeah.
Those are, and here, by the way, what cell is this? And what cell is this? Kind of looks like a fried egg, right?
Oh, yeah.
The quality is too low to make out the granules that are here. But you do see the fried egg appearance.
The mast cell?
These are mast cells, yes. So a neural tumor has wavy, comma, S-shaped nuclei with mast cells.
Okay.
And if this patient has von Reckinghaus, this is a... So this is... Yeah, go ahead.
Von Reckinghaus?
Which is just another fancy name for a certain condition that is this tumor. That the tumor has in its name.
Ooh.
So what neural tumors are you aware
of? God. Well, there's a neurofibroma.
Which is what this is. So neurofibromas just are like any other neural tumor, will have S-shaped or wavy nuclei, but they're haphazard. They're haphazard and they're disorganized. You see how they're like disorganized and they're in like this pool of like stroma. They're kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very characteristic for a neurofibroma. They also do have mast cells, as we pointed out. That's another feature. They can have also certain like things I didn't show. They can have, like, as the name implies, they can have fibroblasts. But that's the key thing to recognize. The key thing to recognize here is that you're dealing with a neural tumor and it's a disorganized, lazy, comma, S-shaped tumor that's kind of loose in its orientation.
Okay.
As opposed to something like this, which has a capsule and subcapsular edema and certain areas where there's cell poor, which are called Anatoly A areas. Sorry, Anatoly B areas. My bad.
B areas.
Yeah, Anatoly B areas. And areas like this, which are Anatoly A areas that have...
So those are... I mean, they're much more organized.
Much more organized. And you see how they're like... So these are called Verruca bodies. Okay. So these are basically... You see how like they're lining up? The nuclei are just lining up and charging at each other, almost?
Yeah.
So the Anatoly A areas have Verruca in their A areas. Anatoly A, Verruca. Anatoly B are just the cell poor areas.
Okay.
So that is a... Do you know what this is, by the way? It's coming off a nerve, by the way.
This is a schwannoma.
Schwannoma. Perfect. Good job. So this is a schwannoma. And this looks like it has a capsule, but it doesn't. And it almost looks like everything is a Verruca body. But one key giveaway here is how it cracks in the processing. Crack, crack, crack. It's like someone took a hammer after they liquid nitrogened it. So it's not truly palisaded because there are Verruca bodies everywhere. It's not truly encapsulated. See that? And it's not a real neuroma, so we call it a palisaded encapsulated neuroma.
Palisaded, encapsulated neuroma.
Neuroma. Because we're trolls.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Okay.
All right. Good luck tomorrow.
Oh, thank you very much. This was very good. You are a great teacher.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You're going to kill it.
Thanks.
All right. Let me stop the
Thanks
recording.
for joining, everyone.